Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back to the Cougar Digest Podcast. This is episode 11 of our podcast, and I'm joined, as always, two familiar names, Kevin Digital Dude Jasso there. Make sure you read your notes, folks. And Gatlin Stewart are also a regular as well, and just as interestingly as we were talking about before we hit the record button, we'll probably even more of a presence on the site, all three of us, as basketball season gets kicked off. So welcome, guys. How was your weekend?
Hey, Rob. Hey, Gatlin. Yesterday was half good, half bad, I guess you could say, right? And today, I think, the attitude adjustment is settling down a little bit. You know, the anger is not there anymore. Actually, I wasn't even that angry watching the game yesterday. It was just more confirmation on things that I've been thinking about already, but we'll get into that shortly. Gatlin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, the fan of me will find a way to do some mental gymnastics and convince myself, all right, we can win this game every week. But, I don't know how many of us really thought there was any chance that we were going to walk into Manhattan year one and win that game. I think what was so heartbreaking is and I don't know, maybe here's a question for you guys. Would you have felt better if, we walk in those first two drives, we score, and, the end score ends up being 41-14, right? I mean, just showing some form of life, or, is it just,
I think it would feel a little less of a sting in terms of, you know what I mean? It was just ineptitude in the end, and not even trying at the end there. It felt like, I'm sure they were putting effort into it. You know what I mean? Kind of waving the white flag instead of trying to bust the shutout, which I know is more for the fan base, but still, these coaches and players have a little bit of, self-respect and want to put a decent product out there. But yeah, I don't know, that goose egg really hurts. And with it being so long since the last one, I mean, it makes it look even worse, even maybe than what it was. But
the game yesterday was, I think, the game that we were looking to avoid the first year in the Big 12 because you don't want to get blown out like that by a current Big 12 team, because it's just then the talk's just gonna come out there. You guys don't belong. But we've been competitive in the other three Big 12 games. At least for a half, for two of them, and then one all the way through to the very end. To really the last minute, literally. But I just don't know how you take that big of a step back from being as competitive as you were against the number 8 team in the country, to just completely not showing up, and nobody showed up for this game. And it's just, I don't understand how you go from one to the other extreme, and I think that just talks more to the inconsistency that we have with the staff.
Yeah, well, and I also I said this after the Texas game. That was one of those games, you play over your head,
You have to.
U of H played phenomenal. You have all of the, you pull out every trick in the book and all of that. I mean, you lay it all on the line. And so, in general, I think there was going to be just some emotional fatigue after the last 2 weeks. But I also just think in general, you can only get up for so many games, right? That was always kind of, when U of H was on the outside looking in, what everyone said to us was yeah, hey, sure, you can get up for Oklahoma, but how do you get up for a Thursday night game in West Virginia, at West Virginia in the 7th week of the season, right? When those guys are 80% as good as Oklahoma is. And I think that is, to some degree, part of what we're starting to see. I think some of these next couple games will tell us a lot about what's left in the tank as we, kind of drag on through the season.
Fair. No, I think that's good points, all of it. And as the season plays on, it matters. This is, I think, where Coach Holgerson's talked about depth, with it being just in terms of the body size and the ability to rotate at least a couple units in there. Boy, I tell you, on the defensive line in the Kansas State game, just some of the names, obviously, the names from the roster, but some of the names they were rotating through there on the defensive line with Nelson Caesar being out and just trying to keep people as rested as possible. And then obviously with them playing a lot of the 3-3 again, moving Agwebu back there, which I'm sure he didn't come here to play linebacker, but let's be obvious, he was a 3-year starter at Oklahoma playing that spot. So that's why it's been such a smooth transition for him. But I think it's starting to really show now. These guys, these programs that have been in the Big 12 for years and years, recruiting years and years, their second string is probably guys that would be starters, specifically some spots line. I mean, obviously Pat Paul's a pretty good left tackle, and Jack Freeman's held us home all year, despite at points fighting through injury. He's
right.
He's done well. So. But up there in these programs like your Kansas States, any of these programs other than the new four have been recruiting so long that it's tough to even, and I get the transfer portal has changed this a little bit, don't get me wrong, but coming into this, just years, decades of recruiting and keeping anybody in the state of Kansas. They have a ton of great offensive linemen up there, the Iowas of the world, the Kansas States, these Midwest teams that just always have a tremendous offensive lineman that they get homegrown guys up there. So, I mean, I don't want to harp and beat on the dead horse. It's just in this case, it doesn't excuse away the performance, but it's also not surprising that offensive line, and that part of that's on me. And I know they had a decent offensive line, decent rushing attack and all that coming in. But as they got started talking early on the broadcast about how many starts total that offensive line had under their belt and all that, and you started seeing them move and play some, I mean, that's what Cougar fans should be aspiring towards in terms of offensive line play. And I mean, that's where you got to get to. In order to have as many options as you want to have, that's where you got to get.
Well, building on that, Rob, when we talked to Tim Fitzgerald, last week about the game, we were talking about the recruiting part of it, right? Because, I mean, I don't know if you caught that, Gatlin, but when we talked to Tim, I was asking him, one of the questions I asked him was, how do you go from being ranked in your recruiting classes in the 50s and the 60s and even some in the 70s, and you still have the success that Kansas State has? And what he talked about was recruiting to the culture and keeping those local kids who are in the state close to the program. And they recruit the right way, and they obviously coach the right way. And who was that guard that they had beat? Was it BB or something like that?
Yeah.
My God, that guy is ferocious. I would.
That's what you want your guards to look like, right there.
That's exactly what you want.
He rounded the edge there on those pulls, looking for bad things, and he got them. So, yeah, props to him. Someone pointed out too on the board, he's got a younger brother that's on the team that's over there in Kansas State, younger, and he's bigger. So.
Wow.
There you go.
Well, let's take a look at just some stats really quick. I don't think that we wanted to dwell too much on stats with this game because there's really not much there. And I even think I posted something on the site where it was individual stats, and there was nothing there for the defense. And I was like, the defense was so bad they don't even have any stats. So let's pull up just some stats just to take a look and see how dominant this game was. Okay, and I don't know how well you guys can see this. And a lot of the yards that we had, I mean, that was fourth quarter garbage time yards.
Yeah.
We were bad for about 3.5 quarters for this game. I think we had 46 yards at the half, something like that. It was just ugly all around. And I would say that Kansas, look, we got out coached, we got outplayed, we just got dominated in every aspect of the game. They had one penalty for 5 yards, for crying out loud.
Well, that's to me the one thing that I really wanted to talk a little bit about here is again, I mentioned this on the board last week, but my biggest gripe with Dana is this attention to details, and it keeps coming back. And finally, when you think you've got the penalty bug kind of tampered down, you go 5 penalties for 50 yards, including a delay of game to start the game.
Mind-boggling, right? How does that even happen?
It's just undisciplined. And Rob said it best in his morning after. Inconsistency. That is the word of this administration.
Yep.
It trickles down.
It definitely does. And I think I posted the first half stats on the board at the game, and they had 18 first downs already. And I made a comment. I'm like, that's what you get in an entire game, 18 first downs, and they had that in the first half.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was just complete domination from beginning to end. We never showed up for this game, and you can't blame the cold, you can't blame the travel, you can't blame anything. Just no one showed up for this game. Stats show it.
Yeah.
We had 95 passing yards. I think Donovan had 88 passing yards this game. And
that's rough. I mean, coming off of what he had done the last couple games, that's
exactly. He was hitting 70%, multiple touchdowns. 300 yards a game. I mean, he was playing well. And I know that Gatlin wants to go over some things. As far as how the plays were ran. But he looked like a completely different quarterback. And I don't know if Kansas State was just, it was the pressure that Kansas State, because it looked like they were throwing everything from all different directions at him just to confuse him some,
Line didn't handle yesterday's pressure very well. I don't know if I'd say it was their worst game. I don't know in terms of that just yet, but statistically, I don't know what it looks like. But yeah, it was tough watching the offensive line again. I know, we all know, and that's something I'm going to be drawn toward anyway. I mean, that's one of those things. I'm sure Gatlin obviously watches a lot too, but yeah, I mean, it was really rough. Just seeing their inability to get protection when they needed it. Parker looked okay a little bit early, but then I think we all saw it at the same time almost on that one play. The first time he missed the pass pro.
Oh yeah,
there were a couple times, unfortunately.
Yeah, there was a couple times, and as soon as it happened the first time, I'm like, my phone's buzzing, and I'm like posting on the board. Everyone's like, "Oh, he missed the pass pro," and it's right. Don't get me wrong. Just
he whiffed.
People wonder at times why Parker's not in there, and that's kind of what you get. So they put Snead in there, and he later had the little wheel route deal where they, wide open with Green in front of him and dropped it. It's not, it's nothing personal. It's things that had happened. And of course, that's not what he would have. And Parker would love to catch that pass pro, but it is what it is. Those are those things you see him saying, the inconsistency.
That's kind of the cruel joke of that position for us right now. It feels like it almost feels like we're trying to do the money ball. Yeah, we're going to recreate them in the aggregate, right? And the problem is whenever you have these guys who are so specialized, you really need versatility, not specialization at that position. And, that's how you end up with this, where we can't rely on guys to do anything outside of their wheelhouse. And it kind of limits what we can do, because then it becomes a tell for defenses. If you're putting Parker in there and he can't pass block, all right, well, now we know it's going to be a run, right?
Yeah.
That's true. But I think Parker's going to develop into a heck of a running back. Don't get me wrong. Running backs in high school aren't asked to do these things like at this level at best. I mean, I get that the offenses in high school are more developed and complicated than, especially when I was there. But even as of late, over the last decade, it's the amount of knowledge these kids have about football now is just startling. But nonetheless, Parker Jenkins wasn't being asked to pass pro that often in high school.
And maybe
I'm sure it came up, but
maybe I can explain a little bit about why that's the case. So, when you're in high school, I mean, unless you're playing, I don't know, like Duncanville, right, where they've got this crazy defensive line, like Parker is more of an asset, as talented as he is as a receiver, even on those third downs or whatever, right? And there isn't the kind of, complexity of scheme going on where, they're going to, create additional, blocking with the running back. Like, if you are, picking up pass pro in high school, it's usually like, all right, just kind of sit here and anything that it tends not to be structured. Whereas
it's not reading to see where it's coming from. It's not.
You're just kind of feeling it out, or maybe you say, "Hey, you've got the guy off the edge," or if someone comes up the middle, you've got him. Whereas now, like, you've also got more complex pass rushes. So and we'll break this down, but Kansas State did so much. I mean, I'll show you exactly why Parker missed one of those pass pros. It's not his. I mean, it is his fault, I guess, but like, it speaks more to what K-State would do than it does, that Parker missed something, so.
Yeah. If you want, let's go ahead and go through some of those plays that you're talking about.
If you got something drawn up that you want to pull up.
Sure. Let me just jump ahead. This was, I'll go ahead and play this one. This one, I just wanted to give Tyler Johnson oh wait, hang on. I got to share my screen. Sorry. Okay. All right. You guys see me all right?
I see you.
I just wanted to give Tyler Johnson a little shout out here on this play. I think I got because this was, I think, the second or third play of the game. Man, I am getting that same issue as last time, where I can't see my screen when I'm sharing it. Let me try.
Yeah, this thing gets junky sometimes. Go ahead and keep working on it. Me and Kevin keep chit-chatting for a second. But, Kevin, you had a couple points you were talking about. If you want to bring something else up in terms of bigger picture stuff while we wait just to see, let Gatlin mess with this thing, see if he can get it.
Okay, well, we can get into that. Okay, yeah, let's get into that, and we'll get into the analysis that Gatlin's going to bring. Okay, so I didn't want to talk too much about like stats and what happened in the game because we know what happened.
Right.
What I was thinking about, what's been just killing me for the last 24 hours is just how do we turn things around from a program standpoint, right? And I came up with three things that just kept coming into my head whenever it comes to what we need to do. Okay. And I think they're all doable. And none has to happen before the other, but the three things that I'm thinking about. Okay. First one is, and you guys feel free to tell me what you think also. Okay. First thing is I'm kind of off the fence now with this staff. I think we need to change. Okay. It just the staff isn't getting it done. They're not preparing the team for the games. We're starting out too slow, and then we're making very slow adjustments in game. We're not recruiting well. I mean, there's just so many issues that we're having with the staff, right? But when it comes down to it, they're paid to produce, and they're not producing. And I'm not worried, moving forward about what happens, but I think that we need to change with this staff. Okay, they're just not cutting it. And while I think Dana Holgorsen is a good coach, I think he's a really, really good coach. Okay. But he's not the right fit for the University of Houston. Okay. The type of coach the University of Houston needs. And I want to say this without any hate. Okay. But this is not a destination job, right? Quotation marks for football. Okay. At least not yet. We have a great recruiting footprint, right? We have a great economic base. We have tons of alumni, that hang around the city. Okay. But for the University of Houston, you need a coach who's motivated, right? Who doesn't come in and say, this is the last coaching job I'm going to have. I'm not going to go anywhere else. Right. Because then what's driving them to, do better to get, that better job or the better contract, whatever the case may be. And of course, I don't want us just to have a revolving, door of coaches coming in and out. But if we can get, a string of successful coaches in here and maybe they parlay that into a bigger job at a Michigan or an Alabama or just whatever, right? I mean, you can't fault anybody for wanting to go to a program like that, okay? But if they're being hired out to a bigger program like that means that they had success here. So that's just why I think, the type of coach that we need here is one that's hungry, that's motivated. Oftentimes a younger guy, a guy that hasn't proved anything yet, who's looking to prove something. So that's just my first thought. Is I'm off the fence with the staff. I really think that we need to change. Okay, and I'm not the one writing any checks. I'm not the one in making any decisions. Okay, that's just my perspective. Okay, the second thing deals with NIL. Okay, and maybe Rob, maybe you can talk about this a little bit more. I'm not really too sure. How much. I mean, I don't know a lot about how money is appropriated. Within the NIL. I know that it has nothing to do with the coaching staff. That's not anything that really I think they get into with the recruits, but in my mind, in order to compete in the Big 12, we need to really increase our recruiting in the trenches and offensive and defensive line, and that's where NIL comes in. However, we're appropriating this money, we just need to allocate more to the pile that goes to offensive and defensive linemen. It just is what it is. That's the game that's being played now. That's what a lot of other schools are doing. Is that you see some schools. I mean, I remember when NIL started, I think it was Texas had already, $50,000 or whatever it was that was going to go to every offensive line on the team. I mean, what are we doing with that? Okay. And look, I know that we're probably not going to keep up money wise with Texas. Not many people can. Okay.
Right.
But whatever pile we have for NILs, I just think we need to allocate more of that to offensive linemen, defensive linemen. It's the way the game's being played. Until things change, we have to play the game if we're going to recruit. And look, I'm not expecting 5 stars. I'm not expecting those guys to start coming on board unless we just start throwing crazy money out there, which I don't even think they'll still come. I mean, you're still going to have those guys going to your big time SEC, Big Ten schools,
Yep.
right? But we can still snatch some,
All right. There's more out there.
That's what I'm thinking, right? Is just we need to allocate some more of those NIL funds to, directly more towards trying to recruit and offensive lineman and defensive lineman. So that's my second point. Third point is we just need more alumni support. It just comes down to it. We need more people at the games. I can't crawl into the head of a recruit. I can only think about what I'm thinking whenever I go to a game. Us against TCU or us against any other Big 12 team, and we have 25,000 people in the stands, and we got half the stands are missing. You have to think about what image does that project into the recruit's head, right? He goes to Tech, he goes to Oklahoma State, they got 55,000, 60,000 in the stands, screaming, loud. And I understand that those are different dynamics in those markets, right? But I mean, what do they keep saying? We have 200,000 alumni in the Houston area alone. Why can't we get a small percentage of those guys to the game, to support this team? And, the excuses can't be there like it was in the past. I understand if we're playing a Tulsa or an East Carolina and people will take the game off because it just doesn't seem that important to them. But when you have, TCU coming in, when you have Texas coming in, when you have, these Big 12 teams, the teams that we've been waiting almost 3 decades to play, and even our first home game against UTSA, we couldn't even fill that up, And I think Gatlin had this idea before about giving, those tickets above the student section to more students, right? If we can't fill that up, if people aren't going to show up and buy those tickets, give them to the students. We know that they'll show up, right?
I've not followed up, but someone commented on that last time. Yeah. That section up there is supposed to be allocated for students, but I don't know that to be true. I just saw a comment.
I think it's like a
overflow.
I think it's like an alum, like a young alumni section.
Okay. I was about to say, if it was strictly students, you would think they would have at least had more requests for the Texas game to be up there. But then again, the kids are going to come packed down in that area anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I don't know. I didn't look into it yet any further. I just saw that comment somewhere.
But those are just, finish up. Those are just what I think. Those are just 3 things that need to happen to turn this program around. We talk about football operations, and they're going to break ground on that at the end of the year. So that right now that's not what I included in there. But we need a change in the staff. We need, allocate NIL funds more to try to recruit offensive, defensive linemen, because right now, our skilled positions, I think we can keep up with other teams in the Big 12, but it's the offensive line, it's the defensive line that is the biggest difference that I'm seeing in these games. And that's why I think that to keep up, you just have to allocate more funds to those, to the recruitment of those positions. And of course, alumni support. You have to have alumni support. You have to think that this team is going to have some extra juice, some extra energy, some extra focus, extra intensity when they have 40,000 people in the stands as opposed to 25,000. And that's just my point with that. Okay. It is what it is. Look, and look, I started at the University of Houston in 2001. And I do believe, if my memory serves, that was the year we did not win a game. Okay. And, I went through that. My dad and I, we went to every game. We always sat out there on the visitor side by the band. My dad always wanted to sit on that side. And I think he just likes watching the coaching and how they're reacting to things on the side. I think that's just, he always did that when he took us to the basketball game. We always sat opposite with the teamwork, so he can see what's going on with it. But it's just, we just need to get more alumni support. I just don't know why we can't get it now.
Well, and I think it goes hand in hand with your first point, Kevin, which is right. Like we need a coaching staff that's going to inspire excitement among the fan base, right?
And they both work together, right? You can't have one without the other.
Right. I mean, what was said in the press conference? Hey, this is what it's gonna look like for the next couple years. Well, all right. Give me a call whenever the next couple of years is up, and I'll, that's not a way to sell tickets, man.
I agree.
And you look at go look out into the business world, and what is every startup in the world saying right now? We're a rocket ship. Get in on the ground floor because next week we're going to be at the moon, right?
Yeah, right.
And look, is every startup going to do that? No, absolutely not. But that's what the messaging has to be. That's how you cast vision and inspire hope. And you, as a coach and leader, have to believe that.
Yeah.
If you don't think there's any hope until 2025, then let's just mail it in. Let's redshirt everybody again like we did in 2019 and try to gain an edge. Like I don't know what we're doing here if it's not trying to win football games now.
I don't want to go out on a limb here, but I suspect that approach wouldn't be met with open arms in 2023 as it was. It wasn't all that open arms welcome back
now
then.
being met with open arms.
I'm not going to send that message to the message board. I'm just not going to type it. I'll be honest with you. I take the loss on that one.
Herman keeps coming back up on the message board from time to time. We talk about coaching, right?
Because he was a carnival barker.
He was, but he sold the program. And that's sometimes what you have to do whenever you need to build that support, right? Is you have to sell it. I don't care if a coach goes out and gets grills or whatever it takes to.
But you need someone to that effect that's willing to be the front face of the program and embraces that. And it's no knock on Coach Holgorsen. It's no secret, I don't think, that he's not a people person, and there's aspects of that he doesn't care for. And unfortunately, some of those aspects that he's not been known to care for a lot are growing in terms of the duties that the head coach is having in terms of more recruiting and NIL stuff. I mean, you need a face for the program and someone that, I heard it said to me way back when, supporters and stuff like that, they want to go see a coach and have a beer with him and, chit chat football X's and O's. And then, they don't need you to be their best friend, but you have to be cordial. You have to be, and I get it. In this day and age, I could talk all day and transition from one thing just to the other, but he takes his fair share of vitriol, and some of it I feel, I get it. People are going to say it's well-deserved, and I get that too. Just, it's got to weigh on you after a while, unfortunately. And I know it's not because he doesn't want to win. You could tell that it eats him up to lose. It's
I agree.
Just, you know what I mean? But like I had that one episode a few episodes ago. I was probably 6, I think, when I kept saying, but in year 5, these are those things, over the last year and a half, I've argued against a lot less because as it progresses, you don't have that excuse anymore.
Right.
And something I think about, like, Rob, you said, it's not like Dana doesn't want to win, right? Okay, sure.
Or that he doesn't know how to coach.
But what's that saying? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of the thing with Dana is like, you can tell me, you can get as fired up on a sideline on a Saturday as you want, and hey, he cares, man. He's fired up, and you can see the way he's yelling at the refs and all that. But what are you doing Monday through Friday, Sunday through Friday? Like, I know, the West Virginia week, we heard it was different. There was a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
It was the toughest week of practice they'd had all season. And that was the best we'd looked. And it's like, man, you gotta, especially with kids, man, you listen to Dion, and like, I'm not the biggest fan of Dion, but the one thing he says that I 100% agree with is like, these kids want to be coached hard. They want to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And if
they know that's what it takes.
Yeah. If you provide that, you listen to LJ Cryer in his press conference the other day, and he was talking about, he got here and he was out of shape, and, he wasn't, he didn't realize how much he would slack off, at times in sprints and stuff. And like, it's just that culture of accountability that exists. And, it raises the tides of all ships. And you just don't see that on a consistent basis here. And I think, like, again, Kevin, to your point, I don't think Dana's a bad coach, X's and O's and all that.
Yeah.
I just think all of the details that matter, he doesn't care about.
Yeah.
And if you could have Dana in a vacuum as an OC or something where all he has to do is call plays, okay, great.
And for his sake, if this comes to an end and he moves on, I kind of hope maybe he can find himself in an analyst job somewhere. Again, the guy's he's extremely smart still from an offensive standpoint. And I think what he wants to do now works at the right school with the right players. Just I don't see them getting that here. And I think in a perfect world, he'd be perfectly happy, sitting on someone's staff, being an offensive analyst, maybe an old friend type thing or something like that. I don't think that he's long for the head coaching world, just in terms of, like I said, everything that's growing and all the things, the growing roles as a head coach are all those things that, he doesn't enjoy. And he's pushed his way through over the years, but now it's just going to be even more and more, and the time off they're getting is less and less each year. And I get it. He's mentioned it before, and it's a valid argument, but there's some young, hungry coaches out there that would love the opportunity. You know what I mean? And so, again, that's for somebody else's decision than mine. But if they move on, they move on. No, you're fine.
And I will point out one more thing because we were having this conversation on the board about like when they hired Applewhite. I was talking with someone and was saying some of the names that they could have had instead, and you talking about like Kiffin or somebody like that. But there is also this other side of the coin, which is making a move just to make a move.
Right.
You look at I went back and I looked at like 2018, 2019, 2020, who were the top 10 head coaches, new head coaches each of those years, right? And it's like 80% of those guys every year are failures, and they turn over and they move on to a new spot or whatever, and it keeps spinning through the cycle. And it's like I think whenever the decision is made, they have to get this move right.
Well, sure.
I think we have missed twice in a row now, and a third wrong hire could be a really, really big blow to this organization, to this school.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why you can't bring in a guy that's already established. You can't. You have to get somebody who's hungry. You have to get somebody who's motivated to go to that next level, and that's and again, we keep going back to Coach Holgerson because he is the head coach of this football team. If he is not the head coach of this football team next year, he's not going to be hurting for work. People will be calling him. Schools will want his services. Now, in my mind, I don't see any P5 program that will call him as a head coach. Okay. But definitely as an analyst, definitely as an OC. I think there's plenty of work. People will definitely be calling him to just gauge his interest.
If he chooses to work again, and
he'll get work.
He'll have the opportunity.
Work. Yeah. But there has to be a wholesale change with this staff. There has to be.
I agree. This is interesting that you guys are on kind of not opposite sides, but I think Kevin agrees. But you both bring up key points to it. With you want to make a change if it's time, but you don't just make the change to make it. You got to have that right guy that's ready to go. It's got to be somebody that's going to be able to fit that window. I talked on the board recently about the window in terms that the season ends on like the 25th, 26th is the last game in Central Florida. Yeah. 1 week later is December 2nd. That transfer portal opens. And if you are going to make a change, there's only a 1 week window.
Yeah.
Now the portal's open for 30 days, and that's for guys to get in. So, but if they're going to announce some sort of change, I think I've said it on here before. I've said it on the board. You have to give that next staff a fighting chance to keep who they want to keep off of the roster before they get a chance to even jump. So I don't know. It's a tighter window than ever for that, because after the 30 days of that being open, right in the mix of that, somewhere late December 22nd, 24th is early signing day for high school and JUCO recruits. So, or not really JUCO, because if they're coming mid-year, they're just coming. But for high school guys, that's the early signing period. Again, you have to give that new staff not only a chance to see what they're going to want to keep, but that'll also give them only a few weeks, but important few weeks with some official visits involved to discern what their key needs are going to be, and can they get anybody in here late to flip, depending on their ties, where they come from, all that. That's all, of course, if this were to go down at the end of this season, which I believe still to be determined. But we're obviously watching that, and we'll pass along on board as that plays out.
And again,
no, go ahead, Kevin.
Just again, I know I said this is not a destination job, not yet, but it is a great coaching job.
It's not been proven to be a destination job yet. I think
exactly. But just because of its recruiting footprint, the conference that we're in, but we also have to realize that we're recruiting against a lot of other teams just in this state. We're recruiting against SEC teams in the state and close by, with LSU and Arkansas and some of those other teams. We're recruiting against Oklahoma, Texas A&M, all going to be in the SEC next year. We're recruiting against Tech. We're recruiting against TCU, against Baylor. Shmoo, is going to be throwing, at least they're going to be trying to throw crazy money around there, to try to get the best recruits that they can, and then we're going to be recruiting against Primetime, and he's going to want to recruit Texas. Arizona recruits
You
well.
ever thought about
here,
motivational speaking, Kevin?
Well, I just people need to understand.
I don't know if I've heard anybody say it like that though yet. When you really lay it out like that, I'm like, golly, dude.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot.
Man, that was rough, but it's all true. Man,
it's true. It's the reality of the situation, right? Is that we're up against, yes, we're in the Big 12 now, but we're still fighting those same recruiting battles. And exactly. And we're also fighting the NIL battle at the same time, where there are schools out there who have way more collective, money than we do at this point. So if you want to keep up with Tech and those guys, then you have to do what they're doing also. And look at Tech's class this year. I think right now they have a top 30 class. Whenever they got that 5-star receiver,
counterbalanced a little bit by Micah Hudson for sure.
Yeah, but even before then, they had a really good class going on. UCF has a really good class now.
See how bad they have to hold on down the stretch here, depending on their play on the field. There'll be people come to try to poach a little bit there, but they've got a good young coaching staff, and they should be able to hold on over there within reason. They need to eke out a couple more wins probably to keep people happy, but. So I think people would rather be in their spot than Houston's at the moment.
Here's a name I'll throw out here, and I've put it on the board. I've heard a couple people say it. There's obviously no inside information here. I know absolutely nothing, but this to me makes all the sense in the world, and it's Will Stein, the OC at Oregon.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a better candidate out there when you talk about the geography and the history as the head coach at Lake Travis. His ability as a recruiter, I think we're seeing this year a significant amount of the success that UTSA has had over the last couple of years can be attributed to
what he did while he was there.
I agree.
Not just from a recruiting perspective, but from a play calling perspective. They miss him a lot, and I think you can't have him be going to a better school right now than learning under Dan Lanning. When you talk about like discipline and how he runs a program, I think Will Stein is getting all the education he needs right now about how to be a CEO and all of the other tools from X's and O's and, kind of building culture, recruiting, all of that. I think he has. Would there be some growing pains? Potentially. That's the risk you run with a first-time head coach always, but when we talk about the profile we're looking for, at least that us three are looking for, I think he fits the bill so phenomenally. And you got to imagine he's a guy who'd want to come back to Texas.
Yeah.
That's where his family is, and that's where they've spent a lot of their life.
And if bigger things are destined for him, like Kevin said earlier, if he comes here, and this is all hypothetical, of course, don't everybody jump real quick. But if that were to be the next choice, and he were to come and be successful, and he moves on down the road, whatever his ultimate goals might be, Texas A&M, whatever, you know what I mean, on to a bigger SEC school, I think fans at this point are more comfortable with dealing with that than after dealing with the last two, in terms of just never feeling like you're getting that traction, never feeling like you're getting close to reaching those goals. So I think as I do what anybody would be doing in this situation, as I start thinking a little bit about maybe putting together a short list of things in case things were to move in the next 6 weeks or whatever it is, he's going to be one of those guys that would have to be on the initial, in the whole coaching hot board that comes up on the day of type deal. He's a name that I think it would be egregious for him. It's a name not to be on the list, just because.
Now, whether or not he has interest in us,
right? But you put him on that list at least initially because it makes too much sense. And so, I think that's a great option. And even I was surprised a little bit with just how much his history was after I dug into it a little bit, or somebody put some more information on the board. He really does have a lot of ties. He's
only 34. He's only 34. He's only 34 years old.
And I'll give you a little example. So this is kind of like a personal anecdote, but with Will Stein, being in Oregon trying to recruit Texas, which Oregon is doing really well right now.
Right.
Because of those Texas high school relationships that he has, there's a quarterback that they have an offer out to. I don't know if he's committed yet in the 2025 class. I can't think of his name, but he's a unranked prospect right now. Kevin, maybe if you want to try and find his name,
I'm looking too.
Okay, yeah.
That's a race.
This was a situation where the OC at that high school called Will Stein to tell him about this guy, and he is
That's
going
those
to be
relationships, right?
a 4 or 5 star quarterback. I promise you, he's incredible. Already starting to pile up the offers. He's going to go through the summer camps this summer, and I'm sure we'll start to pick up all of his offers. But being that first Power 5 offer and getting the jump on that
That
because
matters
of that
sometimes. These kids, it really does.
goes a long way. And having those relationships to get those tips is, something that not a lot of coaches have.
Are you talking about Achilles Smith?
No.
Oh man, he's destined for Oregon though. That's Achilles Smith's son. Achilles Smith was a quarterback at Oregon way back.
He's class of
see.
2025, a
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah,
offer.
this
Texas
guy.
kid or Baton? There's a Baton
He's a
Rouge
Texas
offer out.
Okay, because this guy he's already committed.
Michael Terry. Michael Terry's an Alamo Heights kid. There's actually 2 offers. Ty Hawkins is another that's a San Antonio kid that's got an offer. San Antonio lately, man, I tell you what, as I'm just scrolling through anybody else here on the list of offers, San Antonio lately, they've really kind of come onto the map. They were always one of those schools that had a few guys and all that, but as of late, man, they've really been putting out some high-level guys that go into some big schools. I don't know. We'll have to figure out who it is later.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
They may not even have it. But were you able to get any of that stuff fixed on your end over there, or you want to just maybe come back to that later? Gatlin on the
Yeah, no, let's
screen
give it a
share.
shot. Yeah,
let's give it a shot.
Give it time to see what happens.
While you're doing that, and we go to the small thing, I'm gonna switch my battery just in case. But y'all keep going if you hear me drop off.
We'll fill in, or I'll edit it out.
I'm sure y'all can make do without my.
I could speed this up. I could speed this up in editing to make it go by really quick.
Okay. All right.
I can do a lot
You
of
guys
things.
got me now?
Yeah. Let's put this on the stage.
Oh, I see where you're coming on here. Yeah, I got you. I see what you're doing.
Okay. It's on the stage,
digital
Gatlin, for you.
dude.
Okay, good deal. So this was one of the earlier plays, and I just wanted to give a credit because I've been hard on our guards early on about their ability to block in space and climb up to the second level. And this was just a simple zone run play, but both of the guards got on to the linebackers, and it allowed Parker to get up to the second level, third level, and have a nice little play here to kind of get some momentum early on. We did want to talk about some of these Parker Jenkins. So everyone, I think, was kind of paying attention to the touchdown where he missed the blitz pickup, but there was actually one before that cost us. So this drive, if you guys remember, this first drive of the game, we were moving the ball really well.
Yeah, that first one was a drive killer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So things were clicking, and here we go to 3rd and 8, and I'll show you what happens here. So we have Matthew Golden on an in-breaking route, and he just kind of gets hit as he throws. Ball goes incomplete. And let me show you here, because this is where I said, I don't blame Parker, okay? So they've got kind of 4 at the line of scrimmage, showing pressure here, from at least 5 or 6 of these guys.
Gatlin, I don't know if it's the same for Rob, but I can't see anything on the screen. It's just black.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
I can see the Houston at Kansas State.
Whoa,
but
that's
I'm
Jimmy.
just not. Yeah, I wasn't seeing an actual video.
That's
Gotcha.
fine.
It might have been. I know what was happening. I know what's happening here. Okay. This is YouTube TV trying to keep me from pirating their content. Right?
You guys mind your business, YouTube. Let us do what we're doing.
Okay. Man, this is brutal. So we show pressure from 5 or 6 of these guys. All right. And so we kind of call it, we pick it up inside, whatever, right? But right here off the edge, this corner blitz kind of was not ID'd pre-snap. And then, Parker initially thinks he's going outside.
Oh, yeah, I remember this play, yeah.
and they actually end up running a stunt on this corner blitz, which is
a
just
twist or something, I think, right? Yeah, I remember this one now. I do, because at first I blamed it on 74, and I went back and looked.
Yeah, so Pat Paul ends up, he tries to go outside because he thinks that's where the corner's going, and then Pat Paul slides and he kind of gets tangled up just a little bit, and he's just a step slow. And
right as he's letting go of the ball, he gets hit, right?
Yeah, so if he picks that up, it's an easy pitch and catch. You've even got this little hitch right at the top of the screen if you wanted it. So he had options. Just
Golden's open there across the middle, depending on what those other
Well, that's where the ball was going.
Right.
But my point is just like you got open guys across the board, and if Parker's just literally like 2 steps earlier and IDing that, we've got a first down. In this game, drive keeps going. Things look a whole lot different. But instead, it just kind of kills all the momentum right there that you had, which is tough.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I think we were critical on the offensive line and the quarterbacks, obviously, and Parker. But I wanted to point out, it was kind of everyone making some mistakes here. Trying to find this next play. Here we go. So this is an RPO. Donnie kind of IDs pre-snap. They're showing pressure. So, we've got the pass on. And
real quick, I don't want to interrupt you too bad, Gatlin, but I do want your thoughts just because it popped in my. They did this a lot pre-snap. Obviously, they knew Donnie was having problems reading or whatever, in terms of they were real good about waiting and shifting, moving around, and they knew that Donnie was going to wait to the very end. So they would do little things there at the end right before they knew the play clock was going to run out. Of course, knowing that he didn't have any choice but to snap it now. But I felt like they did a pretty good job of trying to disguise where I know most programs at this point are doing that, but I kept picking up on it, on them sitting there and watching Donnie waiting the last, 2 or 3 seconds of the play clock, trying to read as much as possible before.
No, definitely.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And so what you're really trying to figure out here is who's blitzing and who's dropping, right? And K-State, they brought all 6 several times.
Yeah.
And I've got a play that I'll show you in a minute where, like, you've literally got just 0-man coverage. Like, they brought, I guess, what was that, 6 or 7? And it's like you just got
nothing you can do almost.
Yeah, well, what it means is you have one-on-one coverage across the board.
You gotta get that ball out.
And you just well, you have wide receivers who aren't winning matchups. So if you watch right here, we've got this RPO on. He IDs kind of early on. All right, this is going to be a pass because we got a ton of pressure coming. And Matt Golden has one-on-one coverage here, and I mean, you gotta get that man off you. You gotta win your matchup. And this guy is just right on his back hip the whole time, and that is a tough throw.
Tries to use the ref and still doesn't help.
Yeah, and I mean, not to pick on Matt Golden. Like, I mean, no one played good, but my point is just like in general, there were a lot of times where these wide receivers didn't win their matchups, and when they did, we had trouble getting the ball to them, and that's kind of just that, not being able to line things up right where and
Smith's inability to be consistent and getting it to a tight window like that. It'd be, you know what I mean? There are quarterbacks out there that's all the window you need. And he got hurt in the first play of the Jets game this year. And that's, you know what I mean?
That's the first thing that popped into my head too.
No, and I won't put that throw on Donovan, but I just mean in general.
No, but I'm saying though.
Yeah.
There are quarterbacks that can bail you out of that.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the other missed blitz pickup for Parker, just for anyone who didn't see it. So we'll kind of show here. Again, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9.
That's just bonkers, by the way.
Yeah. So they're blitzing 9. They have just man coverage on our 3 wide receivers. Everyone else is coming. There is no safety back here.
Wow.
And so what ends up happening, I don't love this kind of pass protection design against this obvious aggressive coverage where we're running this play action. Like, I think it just slows us down. But what really happens here is, so Tank is pulling across the formation along with the tight end. And what that does is they bring this blitz late. So Unije has a really tough responsibility here. He has this defensive end that he's trying to wash down inside so that I guess that would be maybe Freeman or whoever's inside there with him is trying to take over. He also has to get outside.
Tank.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So well, no, Tank is pulling right here.
Okay, so I got you. Then it would be.
Yeah. So there's this. So again, this is what's really tough. So you've got a defensive end who lines up on the outside. He's crossing face, and there's a big gap here that's created by Tank Jenkins filling or pulling. So you have to watch this guy down and get him over to whoever that would be, the center, I guess, Freeman. And you have this guy blitzing off the edge. So you have to get inside and then get out. And that's a really big ask, first of all, right? So Unije doesn't do a terrible job. Like, this guy ends up getting by, and I mean, like, you chipped him, okay? Donnie can slide up in the pocket off of that. This guy's going way too fast up the pocket. I'm really not concerned about that.
Right.
And if Parker kind of lets that go, he picks this guy up. So Tank pulls, and this guy fills in right off of Tank's butt, and is kind of the free man here. And that's a situation where Parker didn't see that these linebackers were coming, right? Because that's kind of your primary responsibility is, look for the blitz and then find work. And so he doesn't see the blitz late, goes to help out on what looks like you need a lot of help. So I'm going to come over here, and the blitz gets there late. I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of gotta hold up for just a second longer. I would say, maybe I don't know. I wouldn't put this on Donovan, but if you want to, you can say, all right, man, you got to understand that there's 9 people blitzing.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there some sort of call there that someone's got to recognize that?
Yeah, at
minimum, right?
At minimum, you see pre-snap 7 are coming. You've got to get rid of this ball fast.
And so even if Donnie has to step up in the pocket there, it should be a quick step and throw, like a hitch throw.
You just gotta kind of let it go. You can't take your full drop in this situation. You've got to just kind of 1, 2 and flip it up.
No chance that's going to be an accurate throw.
Yeah, and maybe that's not his coaching in this situation, but that's just kind of, again, I'm not trying to point the finger at any one person. My point here is all together, like, everyone didn't execute. And still, I mean, you are, a step and a half away from a touchdown.
Because look, if you deliver that with any
all three of them
step earlier and get it out.
Yeah.
Because Sammy Brown's got his guy beat there.
Yeah.
But it's just a better ball away from it. And like you said, now you like the fact that Parker's jumping out on that and helping it. And I'm sure pre-read they know that that's probably with him pulling, obviously, he knows that's potentially where his first help's going to need to be over there. Right?
Definitely.
Because by pulling, you're about to do what you just explained by having to wash one guy down and potentially go to the outside. So I'm sure that he's been taught, hey, look to see if he needs help out there. And that's true. They delayed the blitz long enough where he didn't see it coming. That's about to be better for you too. But you figure, of course, if instead of going out there to help, he stays home in the middle, that's that extra step that you need basically for Donovan to be able to step into that throw and deliver a good ball. Am I right? At least am I thinking there for the most part?
Yeah. No. You said it perfectly.
And again, you don't blame Parker for doing that. That's his first read probably. And
no.
I haven't seen him miss it on other plays. I'll take it. You know what I mean?
This is my point where, like, this is one of those things where you just look at it and say,
Kansas State did a good job.
A great play by K-State. It's designed really well. They executed it perfectly. And, I mean, it just sucks, and there's, not a whole lot you can kind of.
One of the early plays they had success on, I remember saying specifically, man, you just got caught. And it was some sort of screen that they threw to the right side, and they had called something where Houston basically vacated right where they ran the screen at. They brought the blitz from right where it was at, and I saw it, and I was like, man, there's just, I mean, they had the perfect call for the defense.
Yeah, and that's one of those situations where, again, I mean, where you want to point the finger. Houston got outcoached really badly here. And that's not a knock on Houston. I mean, Dana said it in the press conference, and I kind of, at some point you could just kind of agree, like, man, K-State's just really, really good.
Yeah. That program's in a good spot, and they're in a good spot for when Texas and Oklahoma leave in terms of they're going to be right there fighting for the conference year in and year out. At this rate, it's kind of hard to argue and see things that's going to have them drop off.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead here a little bit. I've got just a couple plays tagged out. So
backups
came in. So I wanted to talk through a couple things on that we've mentioned a little bit on the board, but everyone's been calling for Uwe, and I think this was a really great peek behind the curtain of everything else that goes into being a quarterback besides just how well you throw a football, right? When you watch Uwe,
did you have to watch him as a lefty too? Did it mess with your brain any?
Well, I'm a lefty.
Him being a lefty. Oh, well then never mind. Kevin, help me out. Tell me you're right-handed at least.
I'm right-handed.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
My brother's a lefty, but I'm right-handed.
Go ahead. Sorry, Gatlin.
No. You're fine. So, his natural ability is incredible. Like you watch the kind of touch and zip he puts on the ball, the way he runs, like it's really great.
You can see what they like about him.
Yeah, but it's kind of unfair of us to ask him to be playing right now. He's so young. He, his first year in college, he played running back, right? I know he played quarterback in high school, but he hasn't been doing this at the college level very long. And there's just a lot of like, how do you manage a huddle? How do you, get plays in? How do you make sure everyone else is doing their responsibility? All of that stuff. IDing the defense that just takes time, for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And Uwe is no exception. So we'll get into that. But first, I wanted to take a look actually at Pancake, who is as good as advertised.
Oh, yeah.
So this was phenomenal. Right here, first step. Okay. So as an offensive lineman, your first two steps are everything. So he takes what we call a bucket step here, which is, you're towards the play side, your play side foot goes back and kind of like diagonal. We call it a bucket step. He gets his foot in the ground very quickly, does what we call a half bench. So you take your backside hand and you've got it just kind of in their jersey, and that other hand is kind of looking for work as you climb to the second level. Right. And it's on a combo block with, I guess that would be Peyton Dunn probably on the left side.
By this point, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So they do a great job. He kind of, basically sets this edge, right? Through the first couple steps. When you've got this guy turned like this,
sideways,
that is power. And I understand these guys are, second teamers, but he looked like a man against these second teamers. And so he allows, Peyton Dunn to just kind of easily take this block over and climbs and flows right up to the.
And look at the push too.
Yeah.
Across the board on these plays. And again, like you said, I don't know, but if you're looking for something to be happy about moving forward, these are some things you see sometimes. I get it. You know what I mean? Folks are looking for something to be spirited about as we turn to basketball.
Yeah. So, just something positive, that like I got a couple more of the Pancake, but it was just really encouraging to see, not just from like a strength and size perspective, but technique, like his pad level, his steps, his, the power with his hands, like are all things that you look at and are just really excited about for the future of that interior.
Yeah.
So this next one, okay, this is, again, when I talk about like, the quarterback of it all, this is a busted play. And I don't know if this is on Stacy or on Uwe, but they lined up on the wrong side. So they motion over here, and it should have been the other way. He should have been here and motioned around, because if you watch, they pull this tackle and guard, and the ball is supposed to follow the pullers. Instead, Pancake is supposed to seal this. He's not supposed to try and get leverage. He's closing the gap that's vacated by these pulling guard and tackles.
To make sure he chase down from behind, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so Pancake does his job. We've got everything. actually blocked up really nicely here. And you look at like there's a great little crease right here that Stacey Snead could have popped right through.
You're just like, finally, they block it up 100% the way probably just about you could expect, and they run the wrong direction.
This is the wrong way. And so, I mean, he's just lined up on the wrong side.
I can't imagine what goes through Pancake's mind in that when all of a sudden he sees Stacey Snead run by and he's like, what? He's probably thinking he did something wrong.
When I was first watching this, I was like, this didn't compute in my head. I was like, there's no way this is what's supposed to be happening here. And as I watched it a couple times, I realized what happened is they just ran the wrong way. So, I mean, is that on Stacey for lining up on the wrong side? Absolutely. I mean, that's your job. But it's one of those things where with Donovan in the huddle, Donovan probably grabs him by the collar and slides him over to the right side of the play.
That's a difference, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just the difference of like having an experienced quarterback in the huddle and things that we will learn and get a lot better at.
And he's probably not in that spot where he feels like he's in that guy. You know what I mean? There's a difference coming from at this point Donovan Smith correcting somebody on the field or something to that. You know what I mean? Not that I think Stacey would take it poorly from Uwe. Just you know what I mean. At this point, like you said, he's still swimming in his brain so much, trying to get his feet under him and. I can't imagine what's going through his head. You know what I mean? He's learned to be a quarterback and trying to learn the
So I had two more quick plays here, just to kind of. This one is very brief. Pancake gets a pancake after we watch these guys dance real quick.
There's got to be an NIL deal here somewhere. Surely, I said it when they landed him. There's got to be, and you got snacks coming in. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
it's too easy.
So this might be, I think, the first pancake of the season for this offensive line, and it was so exciting. Like like
we're only 8 games in.
When I watch Pancake play, like just the power in his hands is something you can't teach. Like he's just got a real sturdy base and like just inside powerful hands that kind of move guys around. And man, that's all you can ask for as a center. You get a guy in pass pro, and you get a chance to kind of get a shot on him. Like that made my heart happy. So I wanted to show that real quick.
As a former center, it probably brought a smile to your face, and it gives you hope for the future, and it shows why Pancake was a 4-star. You know what I mean? I think 4-star centers, I don't know how many end up a year type thing, but center's a pretty important position, and he's natural to it. He's been playing it forever. So it's not like, where Freeman came in playing different spots and learned to be a center. He comes in already as the center, and now obviously he's working to improve.
Yeah, and so this one was also really impressive. So again, this is just another kind of like zone blocking scheme, and again, like man, he is so fast off the ball. That was the number one thing that stood out to me was how quickly he is into his first and second step. That is everything as a center. Like being able to kind of secure the edges for these interior runs was phenomenal. So again, he has this kind of half bench. He's driving leverage, but this was like some maturity that I saw that was really impressive. Just some patience. So this backside backer is supposed to kind of flow over the top and fill into the run gap. And, because these are backups, he shoots into the wrong hole. So Pancake just kind of lets him go and sees this play side backer flowing through. And, he's filling into the proper gap here, but could have, folded back in and potentially made a play. And so Pancake just kind of keeps his base. He stays patient, lets this guy kind of, come down into run support and just kind of covers him up just enough for Stacey Snead to shoot through that crease. And
it's for work after your job's done. That's like so much like where I have receivers too. Like you run your route and then you find work after that. You know what I mean? If you see it break down, not everybody does it well. But same thing. If you've got your man beat, you're looking for work. You know what I mean? You're looking for someone else. It's like you said, that shows a lot of maturity in terms of where he's at. Knowing, seeing his guy fill the wrong hole and knowing he can put a hand on him, but also look for something else.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those guys, especially interior, like when you're climbing up to that second level, these are guys that are smaller and faster than you. And you feel like, it's easy to kind of get out of control and be like, oh man, I gotta run over there to try and do something. And instead, when you keep your base, you're just slow and methodical. You let the play kind of come to you. That's something that takes time and maturity. And so to see that from him so young was really impressive. And again, just makes you excited. It makes you a little frustrated, obviously, that you're like, man, I mean, why is he not in at Tank Jenkins' spot? At least just to see. But I don't know. Maybe they're afraid Tank will pop in the portal, be offended if they do that. I don't know, but
I brought that up a couple times in terms of the potential, and I think I brought this up when I was talking about Brandon Jenkins moving on, and that if you had not moved on and no pieces had left, so to speak, it would have been, probably Trevante Sylvester, maybe switch him to the right tackle this year for Pat Paul's departure. You would have Cam Johnson at left guard. You would still have Jack at center, and I would put Pancake at right guard just based on what else is there. If he gets beat out, and that's a good thing. But otherwise, I would put him to start getting him up to speed in terms of when Jack leaves, he can slide inside right there. And that's good cross-training for him in terms of, that's great cross-training for the inside for him. But
I will say, Cam leaving, I was just never upset about that one, to be honest with you. Like Trevante, I was actually pretty upset by because I think he was going to be, kind of the next. I mean, we've had a great history these last couple of
developing some guys,
and I thought Trevante was going to be next, and so that one hurt. Cam is a fine pass blocker. He's a really good pass blocker, but I don't know who wants a guard who can pass block.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I watch him in the run game, and he never developed. And Tyler Johnson is still young enough. I mean, he's still got 2 more years of eligibility after this. And
that messes with you a little bit too. You think he's older.
Yeah, well, he's really mature. He's very well spoken. Like, I watched Tyler Johnson, and I think it's a guy who kind of got buried on the depth chart at Texas and didn't get the coaching that he probably needed. And I think it's set him behind a little bit. And now, like, I've seen growth from him. The biggest thing is just consistency, being able to put it together on a consistent basis. Yeah. And so I feel more confident about that side of the line, or that guard spot than I do Tank, who's been playing basically since his freshman year and has just had the same problems for the last 3 years.
Right.
It is frustrating. I share that. Every time that we see Pancake on the field, we see something different, right? We see a guy who knows his job, and it's frustrating. I share the frustration that he's not seeing any playing time other than in blowouts.
That's fair. It's tough to. I mean, I don't think you can. I get it. As the season's progressed, I understand a little bit more. Jack's held his own at times. He's fought and he's been a warrior. I mean, don't get me wrong. And as a mental leader too of this, it makes less and less sense as the season goes on for that switch. And I know I rallied a bit for it, not necessarily the switch, but like using Pancake in the Sam Houston game versus even playing Jack when he was going with the foot injury and all that. But it's grown on me more and more. Jack's become a really solid player. He really has. I don't know if he has pro aspirations after this or whatever, but his history and what he's developed into deserves him the right to finish out the year. And I don't think that's the argument at all. I don't think people want Pancake in there.
The one thing is, it's weird. Like, I think Jack is our second best offensive lineman, and it's not even close. And that's not a knock on Jack. That's a shout out to the guy over on the left who's pretty solid, right?
Exactly.
I think Jack is a really good player. He's done a really solid job this year for us. The only thing is, like, you would think between the two of them, one of them could do a better job at guard. I know Jack Freeman, maybe he wants to play center and maybe, Pancake can't play guard or something, but I watch it, I'm like, all right, Jack played guard before, slide him over here, put Pancake in, or keep Jack at center if he wants to and put Pancake in. I just would like to see it. I mean, especially after this, like, again, and that right guard spot is hard. In this offense, there's a lot of pulling and footwork that's kind of specialized. So again, maybe there's something that's going on that we don't know. But I just watch it and I'm like, man, that feels like something you got to at least give a shot to.
Yeah.
I agree.
Good stuff for the future, though, for sure. I think obviously as long as nothing weird happens and he were to hop in the portal, the center spot looks to be in good hands moving forward after Jack leaves. At least it gives you some hope there as he continues to develop.
Yeah, certainly.
Still got to find those tackles, but it makes you feel better because center is not always the easiest spot to fill sometimes. There's a few elite each year. And again, as you go through the list of where they end up at, a lot of it's going to be from the bigger schools down type thing. So, anything else, man? We went over an hour and 10. We're coming up on. That's but good stuff. Obviously, I hope the whole way through. I don't think there's anything I would cut off of it. So, anything else before we leave? I know we didn't really touch on the basketball of the game very much. I know the scrimmage with UNC Pembroke Saturday. A lot of us were watching. I know Gatlin was busy with stuff going on personally there. But as we move forward into the season, it'll be kind of a multi-headed attack in terms of coverage of the basketball. Kevin and Gatlin and myself are going to split up, and also we're going to use a little bit from Blake, who's the student intern that's on the site. And so I think between us, we'll be able to cover everything. It'll be a different face sometimes as the lead each, game to game. But even the stuff I can't be at, I generally try to at least catch on TV. So
right.
That'll at least, you know what I mean? Even if you're not there, doesn't mean you're not watching type thing. But we should have more coverage this year than what we had in the past. So that's a good thing to keep an eye out on the site for as we look to continue to push forward and grow in any ways that we can. It's not always easy, but I'm super appreciative of these guys and Blake as well, and everybody that helps out and jumps in and all that. So hopefully everyone appreciates what they do as well and keeps pushing forward, right?
Well, it was an exhibition game, so I mean, you got to obviously it doesn't count. It's
right,
a glorified scrimmage. So I'm sure that Coach Sampson was just trying to work on different combinations with a lot of these new players, see what's going to work. I mean, excited to watch that guy play, man. He goes after. He is exactly the player that this program looks for. I mean, he goes after every exhibition game. The guy's throwing himself on the floor. With
the first game, 40, I know he was excited. Lead,
Yeah, you know who he reminded me of actually. I didn't get to watch the whole game. I was at the wedding, but tried to watch as many clips and go back and watch some of it. Is that Norchad Omir from Miami last year?
Okay.
I mean, he's an undersized guy when you really think about it. I mean, Tugler, Sampson talked about this, right? He's really only 6'8". But has that 7'6" wingspan,
and only 6'8".
The way for a guy who's playing center, right? He has great kind of ball location, and then you just watch that hand just zoom shoot up into the sky.
Oh my God. The leaping ability.
There was a lot to be excited about. LJ Cryer I thought looked great once he hit his groove.
As good as advertised.
As good as advertised, so to speak. Yeah. I think there was a ton to be excited. Jamal Shedd's going to be Jamal Shedd. Man, it's going to be interesting. I think, again, it will depend a bit on how that front court develops and what roles and pieces they can be throughout the season. I think they're going to have a lot of guards, and that rotation will work its way out. But just how much they can get out of some of these young paint guys type thing, or these younger big men.
It'll be interesting, I think, to see on a consistent basis is Houston able to continue to do what they've done with doubling the big guys down inside. I think it was that Eric Bossi over on the national side wrote about this, and I really liked that take that, when you're seeing a 6'11", 7-footer on a nightly basis, does that kind of start to come back to bite you a little bit more than it has against, Wichita State or somebody where the big guy may not be as skilled. And I know Houston's been able to do it in the tourney and kind of one-offs, but how does that kind of play itself out on a night in, night out basis? Will be interesting to watch.
I can't believe Jaywan Roberts is really a senior this year. Is that real? I mean, they brought him into the media day, and I was like, for real? He's already – I mean, you know what I mean? Some of these guys come in, and you're like, wow, I can't believe he's already a senior. I remember,
What about did you catch a lot in the game also?
Oh, also, yeah. Also very, very –
very active,
Impressive for, again, I think, you know what I mean?
These young guys. New to basketball, he's pretty new to basketball.
Yeah, his first year was what, like his sophomore year of high school or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. Very recent.
Crazy.
So very raw, but I mean, very talented. I mean, there's a reason, right? I mean, Texas was after him, right? There were some big programs that were after him just for the potential of what he could be.
Yeah.
And fortunately, when you got a guy like JoJo and some of these guys that might be coming in, like he kind of has that luxury of doesn't have to play a lot and contribute right away. He can take his time, just like Javier Francis did, right? I mean, this is year 3, Francis in the program. And he's really just now starting to, kind of come into his own. So I could see Seth Leif kind of going through that similar.
Finding his minutes in there just like the others. And depending on how that plays out, I mean, like I said, I think the guards will be all right as long as health stays there. They'll figure that rotation out however works best. But, yeah, I mean, depending on what you get from the bigger guys, depending on development and the young guys and how quickly they get up to speed, come April or, come February, March type deal, you might have a little bit better idea. And maybe it leads to I said it the other day. I don't know where I said it. I forget these days. I say a lot, evidently. And
can't keep you accountable.
Broken news. There's your news scoop for today. But I think this team is at that caliber where they're just waiting to find the right mix to win that championship. And then Coach Sampson said the same thing. They're at that level now where at any year they could find that right mix and get the right growth during the season to find. And of course, it's going to come down to your draw once you actually get to the tournament. But they're at that point where any year, I don't think it was shocked to see them develop and compete for a national championship by the end of it. So
they're about as deep as any team I think out there. They're as deep as any team.
And it's not going to. It doesn't show any signs of letting up with some of the recruiting they've done and some of that they're still involved in. You know what I mean? They're reloading year after year with studs. So.
Well, and the one thing I didn't get to see if this played out or not in the exhibition, but something to keep an eye on that I really like is, obviously you hate to lose a guy like Tremont Mark, who's just done so much for the program, is such a great kid, but he's had big moments for Houston. But I do think there's some really interesting potential having LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp at the 2 and 3 this year. Ability to kind of space the floor and allow Jamal Shed to create penetration in a way that didn't necessarily exist last year when, Tremont Mark just, wasn't a great 3-point shooter, right? Having real 3-point, lethal shooters across all of your guard spots is going to be exciting.
For Shed to be able to penetrate like that and be able to kick out. I mean,
you get those high ball
Sharp or Cryer, any of those guys with the open 3. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Shed had I think 8 assists yesterday, 2 points and 1 turnover. I mean that's you'll take it when you score 84 points, right? You'll take that.
That's kind of how Galen was by the time Galen increased his offensive output that last year. I remember, but similar. I mean, he was just a tremendous point guard, and you knew. I mean, you didn't care what you got from him offensively. He got better in the end there, but it wasn't even important type deal. That only helped him. But true, really good point guard play, I think, is underrated a lot. And that's probably
having a guy who can, he can kind of fill that Tremont Mark role in terms of when you need a bucket, put it in Shed's hands. He can go create something. And
absolutely, he can go get it.
You trust him to make the right play. That kind of like
there you go.
LeBron James. If it's to take the shot against Memphis, he's going to go take the shot. But if LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp are open, he's going to find them. And I think that kind of maturity, having a senior point guard who knows the difference, is just such a luxury for this team.
Agree.
Very true.
Just gonna try to figure out who's going to be the point guard after he is no longer.
Oh yeah, now that's something already they got to start. Exactly.
They do. They need to start.
That's gonna probably have to be Portal. I mean, I think we've all talked about it, right? But,
yeah. As good as you feel though, with all the other parts, it shouldn't be hard. Every year there'll be 1 or 2 stud guards, you know what I mean, in the portal, and you just you have to be that attractive team. And these players that in basketball, they know when a team's a piece away type thing, and they know they want to get in on a situation like that. It shouldn't be hard for them to attract a guard if that's the route they go through the transfer portal next offseason.
Yeah, it shouldn't
be. Well, $1.20 in. I think this is probably it for us. Like and subscribe down below. Share with your friends, family, co-workers. Anything else I can think of there. Blast it out to all your friends.
That's right. Spread the word.
But yeah, I think this is a good one. We'll figure out who we're going to get from Baylor this week. Sick'em 247, I believe, is on the network. Shout out before I don't know if anybody will see this, but shout out Tim Fitzgerald and the guys at Go Power Cat last week came in, did their deal, and I think we got a nice boost from the K-State fans off YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned how much they do on there, but went back and watched looking at the views off of last week's with Tim in there. And I would argue strongly that K-State has a very strong presence on YouTube because we had a nice little boost from that last week.
Yeah.
Tim, of course. Definitely all Tim, you know.
All credit to those K-State fans.
That's good. And I kind of like that in terms of the power of the network. When we have these podcasts and they share and we have them on type thing, you get the cross-promotion between the two sites. It helps a lot. So shout out to the K-State fans. I know we picked a few of them up for subscribers, and I don't know if they're just going to stick around and watch the Cougar coverage or not. But if y'all are still around and seeing this, appreciate that. And kind of goes to show you what kind of a program they are in the Big 12 moving forward. So they got a good fan base over there.
They do, for sure.
But yeah. Anything else I'm forgetting, Kevin? I always forget stuff. You got to jump in at the end and remind me.
Nope. Just stay tuned for the next show. We'll preview Baylor. And, of course, I think the next basketball game is on the 6th, which is
Monday, a week from tomorrow. We're doing this Sunday night. So a week from Monday, first game, Louisiana Monroe will be here. So we'll figure that out. Who's gonna be the first person, so to speak? We got to like rock, paper, scissors that or something. You know, how's that work out?
I'll volunteer.
Maybe highest bidder it.
I'll volunteer.
Yeah, all the money we're all making, we'll just bid it up.
Right.
But yeah, no, we'll figure all that out. But yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks again, Gatlin, Kevin. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Do rock, paper, scissors.
Like adults, right? Let's rock, paper, scissors.
Exactly. I do that in class. So
that's episode 11.
Yep.
So we'll see y'all for episode 12, Big 12-12. We'll be talking probably a little more hoops and a little bit of Baylor. So
almost
come back for that one. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks a lot. All right.